Hello viewers, well, it's my blog now for the Chinese Grand Prix 2012. A couple of weeks wait for this race, and it's funny actually seeing the practice sessions and qualifying and everything else. We still don't know where we are with all the cars. They still seem to be a little bit all over the place on the grid. You know, you had Vettel there struggling in the Red Bull, you know, the Ferraris all over the place. You know, Mercedes have performed well in qualifying but then dropped back in the race, and how was that going to transform? And you know, then you've got the other teams, you know, Lotus and Williams that seem to be, and Sauber in particular, you know, punching well above their weight this year. It's really great to see the mid-pack teams getting in the mix in some form, you know, and the tyre degradation is going to help with that. On to the race then. So a great start from Nico Rosberg. You know, Michael Schumacher covering everybody off around those first few corners. Of course, Jenson Button there up into third place as well. It was a great start from him. And, you know, the first half of the race, it was really sort of building up, wasn't it? You know, we were looking forward to, you know, the eventual conclusion of Jenson battling with Nico and Michael Schumacher. You know, Michael Schumacher unfortunately pulled out after a pit stop. That was a real shame for him. And of course, then there was a bit of contact at the start as well between Senna and Massa, and Senna going a bit too fast into turn one. It was a bit of a shame for him. He's had a few of these little errors. In fact, Williams have been kind of dogged with it this season, haven't they? Maldonado's quite a bolshy character once he's in the car. So Rosberg from Schumacher and Button at the start, along with Raikkonen and Hamilton, who had a reasonable start as well. And I think it's also, you know, like you say, it's interesting to see how Mark Webber's done. He had an early stop to try and find himself some way to overtake, essentially. It seemed like a lot of the cars, once they were in a line in DRS, they just couldn't get past each other. It was as if the DRS in front cancelled the next one out, and so nobody could get past anyone. It was tricky overtaking on some of those areas, but of course then as the race progressed, we saw those... we saw the marbles appearing, we saw the tyre degradation. I think that's what's really important about this season, or last season as well, is how the tyres work. And it seems that the teams still don't fully understand those, you know, how they reach their maximum operating temperature and when they pass that. And a good idea was when we saw it of Kimi Raikkonen yesterday falling from 6th back down to 10th, which was a real shame for him. I did enjoy the wheelie from Mark Webber. You know, despite doing a wheelie like that and losing obviously part of the underneath of his car, he still managed to come in a reasonable place. So overall then, it was a shame to see obviously Michael Schumacher pull out, because I think Jenson Button would have been up there. Jenson's poor stop then sort of ended his, you know, attack on Nico Rosberg. But I have to say that overall, very pleased with the result yesterday. I think that Nico Rosberg is a fantastic driver. I back him 100%. He's world champion material, and it's great to see him in a car that can deliver him a victory at last. 110 races, and he's finally won a Grand Prix. Great for him, great for Mercedes, great for Ross Brawn. The DRS, super DRS system that Mercedes have designed, you know, I say well done to them. They've come up with a new idea. I think it's really been blown out of all proportion this year. There are lots of ideas in Formula One cars that we don't know about, that are interpretations of the rules. And this one's been highlighted to us, so everybody's talking about it. But I'm sure there's lots of things that Red Bull were doing last year and the year before that, you know, perhaps were a little bit borderline. So I can tell that Adrian Newey was a little bit miffed on the grid this weekend about it. Either way, though, it shows that the teams are all still very close. And though McLaren have the edge, their race pace is not a million miles beyond everyone else. They're still going to need good pit stops, good strategy, and the drivers are going to need to work well with their tyres. Looking at Lewis Hamilton this year, it's interesting actually. People say, you know, it's not old Lewis. It's nothing like old Lewis. Old Lewis had amazing body language to the car. He was always going for it. This Lewis is much more about consistency now. I wouldn't say he seems like a happy character, not in the slightest. He doesn't seem happy at all to me. I thought his most mature drives were in the second half of 2009. Smooth, consistent, like he's doing now, but with a little bit more pace to him, a little bit more immediacy. You know, yesterday he kind of just went around and sort of third was given to him. But to think, you know, Jenson could have been battling for the lead, Lewis should have been up there as well, and he's just not himself at the moment. Let's see how he develops throughout the season. But clearly, you know, he's not. He doesn't seem as happy to me as I would like him to be, and I'd like him to get back that, because he was such an exciting driver to watch, and I'd like to see that return as well. And I'd like to see, hopefully, Ferrari turn their fortunes around, because the car definitely has potential if they can fix some bits and pieces, but we won't see that, unfortunately, until Barcelona. I think Bahrain will be another struggle. So, Bahrain Grand Prix next weekend. Not a circuit I've ever liked, really, and the new bit they put on in 2010, the squiggly bit in the Sector 1, whatever, I don't like that at all. I think it's horrible. I thought it had a much more flowing nature before. I wish they'd cut that out. It's an interesting circuit though. There's been a lot of political ramifications and everything else to the sport, but ultimately the sport has deemed that it's right to go there and to run the race and see what happens. And so we'll then get a real sort of picture of how the championship is forming. I always say that Formula One doesn't really begin till you get to Europe, because that's when all the new bits start getting put on the cars, every single race, and you have a real technology race all the way through the summer. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see who manages to come up to the level, whether Mercedes can keep their current promise going, whether Ferrari can close the gap, and whether Red Bull can as well. It's going to be very interesting. But that's it from a quick blog for the Chinese Grand Prix. There'll be lots more on the channel coming very soon, and for F1 coverage, I am intending to run these races. We'll get there eventually. I've been working day and night on videos, and unfortunately some of them haven't got permission to be shown, so that's why it's been a little bit quiet on the channel this week. But as ever, more from me soon.